The movie opens with David standing by the window alongside his wife and their 8-year-old son, watching a violent storm batter the town. Lightning flashes repeatedly across the nearby hills, and David can see that the storm is quickly moving toward their home. Knowing the danger, he decides to take his family to the basement to wait out the night safely. The next morning, when he steps outside, the devastation caused by the storm is immediately clear. Trees are down, streets are flooded, and the whole area looks chaotic. David walks toward the lake with his family, and his wife suddenly points out a strange sight, a massive wall of thick mist rolling down from the hills where the lightning had struck the night before, slowly creeping toward their town. The mist looks unnatural and threatening, and it immediately sets David on edge. Feeling the need to check on his neighbor, David heads over and finds a large tree has fallen on his neighbor's car, causing more alarm. The neighbor, shaken, asks David if he's planning to go into town, and David confirms that he is, hoping to find answers. He sets out with his daughter and his neighbor, Brent, along the road to the town, and on the way, they notice the growing panic around them. Military vehicles move chaotically through the streets, heading from the same hills that now seem more ominous than ever. Brent asks David if he knows what could be happening up there, and David speculates that it might be an army research base or something unusual connected to the military. Another local woman shares a rumor that a few days earlier she had seen a UFO crash on the hills, and that aliens inside had somehow frozen, adding a sense of mystery and fear to the situation. As they finally reach the supermarket, they see that nearly all the townspeople have gathered there, frantically stocking up on food and supplies after the storm, fearing that more danger is on the way. Outside, police and military forces scramble to maintain order, but the locals remain largely unaware of the real threat approaching. Suddenly, a wounded man stumbles in, shouting that something terrible is happening in the mist. At that exact moment, a massive cloud of mist begins to spread across the town, rolling in like a living force. One man tries desperately to drive away but is completely surrounded, and his screams echo as he disappears into the fog. Inside the supermarket, panic sets in, and everyone rushes to lock the doors, realizing that whatever is in the mist is far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The tension builds as the thick, unnatural mist continues to spread, cutting the town off from the outside world and setting the stage for the terrifying events that are about to unfold. Before anyone can fully understand what's happening, a sudden earthquake shakes the town, sending everyone in the supermarket into further panic. No one knows where the mist came from or why it has appeared, and the fear inside grows stronger. A woman is shown wanting to go home because her children are alone, and she asks the others for help, but nobody dares to go into the mist. Left with no choice, she ventures outside on her own. Meanwhile, everyone inside the store is terrified. David's young son is especially frightened and sits with a few others, while David decides to fetch a blanket for him, asking the people to watch over his child. As he moves into the warehouse section of the store, he notices smoke coming from a generator, so he quickly covers it to prevent any accidents. Just as he is doing this, he realizes there's a shooter, some kind of equipment, behind him. He starts pushing it carefully, which scares the baby, and he moves the child out of the room for safety. At this point, some of the staff members enter the warehouse, intending to fix the generator that David had covered. David tries to stop them because he doesn't want anyone risking their life, but they go inside anyway. As they examine the equipment, they discover the problem is outside, and fixing it will require going into the mist. David refuses to go, but a young boy volunteers, determined to solve the problem. He activates the shooter, slowly lifting it, and when it rises slightly, they catch a glimpse of the horror outside. The mist begins to creep into the store, and it quickly becomes clear that something enormous is moving within it. Suddenly, massive, tentacle-like appendages, like the arms of a giant octopus, reach into the store. They are huge, powerful, and grab the boy, trying to pull him outside. David struggles to save him, calling for help from the others, but the panic is so great that nobody dares to step forward. The monstrous creature eventually drags the boy out, and before it leaves, part of its massive body is revealed. The witnesses inside describe it as a tentacle from a colossal, octopus-like creature. However, many people refuse to believe them. David and the staff members who saw part of the creature decide to take one man into the store to show him the evidence, realizing that the threat outside is far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The part of the creature's body that David had cut off earlier is brought inside, and when it is touched with a stick, it seems to come alive before melting into a puddle and disappearing. The man who witnesses this realizes the seriousness of the situation and warns everyone that there is a real, dangerous problem outside. He explains that the supermarket, with its glass walls and windows all around, makes everyone extremely vulnerable. Hearing this, the staff who had believed David begin reinforcing the glass doors, windows, and walls to try to protect themselves. David's neighbor, Brent, still doesn't trust the warnings and insists he wants to leave, and a few others decide to go with him. David tries to prepare Brent with a safety rope, but Brent refuses, while another man steps forward, agreeing to follow instructions. They carefully guide him outside, but as the rope tied to his waist is pulled back, only half of his body returns, shocking everyone and finally convincing the rest that David and the staff had been telling the truth all along. As evening falls, the generator keeps the interior lit, but darkness begins to dominate the edges of the store. Everyone switches on flashlights to see, but large, flying creatures, like enormous birds, begin landing on the glass windows and walls. The glass isn't strong enough to hold them, and panic spreads as the creatures begin breaking in. The danger escalates further when even bigger birds arrive, drawn to the light inside. One of the men realizes that these creatures are attracted to light and urges everyone to turn off all the lights. However, the generator is still running, flooding the interior with light. As the massive birds break through the glass, chaos erupts. One creature grabs a young girl, killing her in front of everyone, while another attacks and kills a man. Others try to fight back, but some are electrocuted or die in the struggle. Meanwhile, a woman in the store watches helplessly as the deadly mist and monstrous creatures continue to wreak havoc, leaving everyone terrified and desperate for survival. In the store, there is a woman named Mrs. Carmody, who becomes a pivotal figure for everyone. At one point, a massive, threatening creature approaches her, but she begins praying, and the creature retreats without harming her. Witnessing this, the people inside start to trust her, believing that she has a special connection with God. In the past, she had tried to warn people about the dangers, but no one had listened. Now, her faith seems to offer guidance, and she even talks to herself, praying and giving direction when needed. Meanwhile, David and a few others decide to risk going to the nearby medical store to gather supplies, as many people inside the supermarket are injured and terrified. When they reach the medical store, they find an officer trapped and wrapped in webs by a giant spider-like creature. Although the officer is still alive, his injuries are severe, and he admits that their current situation is their own fault. David and the team carefully free him, but soon, more monstrous creatures arrive, including large, aggressive spiders that attack everyone. One spider hurls a strange, acidic liquid at a man, burning his skin, while another sprays a similar substance into someone else's mouth, causing fatal injuries. Two of David's companions die in the chaos, but he and the remaining survivors manage to gather the needed medicines and return to the supermarket, where everyone is anxiously waiting. Among the group is a soldier whose post was on the hills from which the mist originated. David and the others question him about the strange occurrences and experiments happening there. The soldier explains that during his posting, he learned about multiple parallel worlds, each connected to our world through portals. Apparently, one of these portals was discovered in the hills, and through it, all the monstrous creatures entered their world. Mrs. Carmody's faith and knowledge of God's guidance now influence the group, and she begins to warn the soldier about the dangers of tampering with worlds that God has created, emphasizing that their interference has caused the chaos. Mrs. Carmody continues warning everyone about the dangers of tampering with forces beyond their understanding. She claims that the soldier had opened a doorway to another world, breaking nature's laws, and now everyone must face the consequences. Her words deeply influence a man named Jessup, who becomes convinced that the soldier is guilty and responsible for the disaster. In a moment of blind faith and panic, Jessup stabs the soldier, despite David and others trying to stop him. Most of the group sides with Jessup, preventing David and a few others from helping the soldier. Mrs. Carmody then demands that the soldier be thrown outside, echoing her earlier actions with deadly consequences. Reluctantly, the group carries the soldier out, ignoring his pleas to be brought back inside. Soon after, a gigantic, monstrous creature appears and drags him away, killing him. That night, everyone inside the supermarket is forced to survive in fear, and the next morning, David and some companions decide to try to escape the store. As they make their move, Mrs. Carmody intervenes, insisting that no one can leave and that they must sacrifice to protect themselves. She claims that this time, a child must be given as a sacrifice, specifically David's son, mirroring the way the soldier had been thrown out before. David and his group resist, determined to protect the boy. At this moment, one of David's companions bravely attacks and kills Mrs. Carmody, realizing that her blind faith was putting innocent lives at risk. With her threat gone, David and the others manage to escape the supermarket, but the streets outside are filled with monstrous creatures and deadly spiders. As they move toward their vehicle, a giant monster suddenly attacks, killing one of their group, while other creatures also strike and kill two more. Finally, David and the remaining survivors reach their car and start driving toward home. All around them, the city is overrun with strange, deadly creatures. Bodies lie scattered across the streets, and David sees that his own house has been completely destroyed. Tragically, he discovers that his wife has died, leaving him to face the horrifying new world alone with his son. David is overwhelmed with grief when he realizes his wife has died. As he drives forward with his son, a massive, monstrous creature suddenly crosses in front of their car, each step causing the ground to shake violently. It becomes clear that the earthquake from earlier in the story was not a natural event but the tremors caused by the footsteps of these enormous creatures. David continues driving, but soon the car runs out of gas, leaving them stranded on the road with 5 people trapped inside, completely exposed to the horrors around them. Terrified, they realize that if they stay, the creatures will likely kill them. In a desperate act, David uses a gun to end the lives of the others to prevent them from being devoured, then exits the car and confronts the monsters, screaming at them in defiance. At that moment, a massive army tank arrives, manned by soldiers who begin attacking the giant spiders and other creatures from the otherworld, providing a glimmer of hope. The army rescues all the remaining survivors from the store, including the woman who had ventured out first to save her children. She is reunited with her family, while David is left alone with the weight of grief, guilt, and regret. He reflects on the impossible choices he had to make, understanding that fear left him no other options. The story ends on this tragic note, but the climax carries a lesson: patience, courage, and determination are essential in the face of impossible odds. Life demands that one fights until the very end, never giving up.